Okay, please sit down, and we'll close the doors. So there you go. All right. Well, I'll start with a brief introduction. First of all, welcome everyone today. It's a huge pleasure and honor for me to have you all here. I will start really with something very brief because I want to set the pitch and the tone and the message for today. Where I start is that we sat actually in this very room, in this very ballroom, a year ago, almost to the day. And there was a sense of expectation and nervousness about what was going to unfold. It was 10 days after the inauguration of President Trump. We had a few Biden administration officials just being sacked. It was a moment of great uncertainty, and the title of the event was "The Perfect Storm, Will Europe Make It?" And boy, did the storm unleash. And it was a much more sudden, brutal, sharp, harder turn in the political economy that I think anyone was expecting. And then, of course, some of you, and many of you may be coming back from Davos. This was last week, in which, again, we watched the US administration essentially administer a medicine to the sort of grinning European elites who weren't really pushing back very much at all. Mark Carney was the only one who did say something capturing the sort of the general mood. Then there was some extraordinarily inane statements from the European bureaucrats. Christine Lagarde said, "This is a wake-up call, and we need to do a SWOT analysis." Okay, thank you. So in all of this inanity, I think I would like today to sort of leave behind perhaps three main messages that matter a lot to me. The first one is we are a superpower. Europe is a superpower, and absolutely I will not hear otherwise. Yes, they look down on us because we're somewhat behind in digital and AI, but no one looks down on our aerospace industry, on our biotech, on many of the other things that we do excellently. We have tremendous talent and capability, and I don't need to tell many in this room. The second message is that it is on us, and by us, I mean the people, the builders, the entrepreneurs, the founders, the funders. We need to stop looking at the institutions as being the ones that somehow have to magic a roadmap, a plan, an industry. Regulators regulate, that's their job, and they're not gonna build us an industry. And that's fine. So the job of building an industry is ours, and not necessarily the one of the institutions and the regulators. So get off our backside and do it. And the third message is indeed, we have lots of builders. There are many in this room. There are many people from the Eurostar community, and we've managed to move things somewhat. The bi-European sort of sentiment, and in fact, shift in the rules is coming. We have Andy Klinger, who is certainly has pushed the EU Inc. initiative, the 28th regime, and is succeeding. So he'll be speaking later today. So there is so much going on that we can make happen. So to me, this is really the message, an upbeat message. We're no longer in a world in which we're tremulously asking ourselves, will we make it? Of course we will, and of course we must. And so just to start this day, I would like to invite on the stage my first discussants. Please do join me, RAFAEL and DIETMAR and Luis. As you like, yes, yes. And by the way, I will not spend any time reading biographies or titles or affiliation because you can read, they're on the screen, and I won't waste any time. So this is the first discussion, which is going to be brief and sharp. I wanted these friends to help me really establish what I think is the narrative pitch and the framing for this event. Because, of course, we talk about sovereignty in the digital space, often and mostly as a matter of security. We all know the diagnosis. I don't need to just repeat it. We all know what's behind it, and it's an issue of sovereignty as security and resilience. But there is a parallel track, which I think matters a lot. And it is something I've been trying to establish in every discussion that I've had, even with the institution. Don't view this just as a digital kind of silo. Digital matters for the economy as a whole. It's a value capture issue. We need, as Europeans, to establish our own assets, not just because of security, but because it will help growth. And we all know the Draghi mission, the Draghi diagnosis. Turns out that much of the meme, which is about declining productivity growth that Draghi talks about, comes from the fact that we do not have enough fast growth frontier tech firms. And why don't we have them? Because in part, we know the diagnosis, we don't have our own infrastructure on which these kind of things can be built. So let me start immediately with RAFAEL on my left. You, of course, are someone who is established in Germany, a model agency for innovation and productive innovation. But help me make that case, because some out there still say, why do Europeans need their own tech? At the end of the day, you can still use ours and grow on it. And so I want really this case to be made very clear. No, it is not just a question of security, but there's more.
Yeah, well, I think we're all feeling what it means to not really have a point at the negotiating table. You know, now that the geopolitics are changing in this way, and we're experiencing more or less bullying tactics, if you sit at this table, you want something to offer, or actually, let's call it choke points on your own. Otherwise, you're not going to be very successful in negotiating if you have nothing to put on the table. And we're experiencing this a lot. We're also experiencing this bullying and how to react to the bullying, unless you have something. I don't know what it was with Greenland, but obviously we somehow managed, and they pulled back, and we got to do the same. So that's, I think, the very simple thing. It's like in school, on the backyards, the bullies, you want to have something to scare them. Now we have ASML, luckily, so we have something to say in chips manufacturing. We don't have all that much in software, other than everything open source. And that's not just a European thing, it's obviously a global thing, but it's sort of a counter theory to proprietary services. We have the AI revolution coming, which will change everything, and which should make us rethink what hyperscalers in this future really are. Is it still their wealth of services that makes them so sticky? Or don't we need them anymore because now we got AI code generators that can generate against any platform? So we got things coming. We got, like you said, lots of smart people, some of them, many of them not working in European companies, but we can change that. So we got the talent. At SPRIND, we've seen 3,000 project applications of very, very smart people. We funded 300 of them. So we're in almost like a chocolate factory. We see the potency of Europe in terms of breakthrough innovation, not little stuff, really big stuff. Like, you know, nuclear fusion, for example. Some might find it the old scientific joke, but we're actually leading in many regards when it comes to nuclear fusion with lasers, or even plasma with accelerators. That's technology that we've developed here. And that's just one example of hundreds that we're seeing every day. And last but not least, and then I will hand over, I've got much more to say, but I get to it. One thing that you were missing from your 3 points, I think Europe is the best brand in the world, because we're all rooted in humanism, in a common culture, in the age of enlightenment, in the deep belief in democracy, you know, universal healthcare and stuff like that. We are a feel-good region. And if I was anywhere in the world, I would want to come to Europe. And we're seeing the ugly faces of other regions where people are turning the countries into a cesshole. And especially as a German, you know, we've been there almost 100 years ago. I cannot recommend going down this path. And I'm glad that we've got it fixed by some of you, other countries, and that we're now together running this Europe. as a hopeful vision for the lives of the people. So that is probably the message to every smart person or every person: come here. It's a much better place to be, and it's a much better place to live your best life and do cool stuff. So I think we're very strong.
Agreed, except the reason I left it out is that, as you know, I find it that often that narrative is number one point, and then it becomes an excuse for not doing very much. We are the best values people. Okay, do nothing and be valued. Okay, so I think it needs to kind of come at some level, but not at the top. Let me turn to Dietmar. Dietmar, you're an economist, and I've known you for a very long time as someone who has been very engaged in tech policy and really in innovation. And I would like to hear you on this theme of Europe needs its own stuff. And really beyond the security aspect that we discussed, but let's make this case very, very clear, because when I even talk still today to politicians, they say, well, you know, like that kind of like the digital commissioner. And I say, no. This is for the industrial commissioner. This is for everyone in politics who cares about Europe's growth. Can you elaborate on your thoughts on that?
Yeah, gladly, and thanks for having me. And I have to confess that maybe my engineering identity that I acquired before becoming an economist in the United States is in these days much stronger than my economist identity, because I see many of my colleagues getting bogged down in ideological economics, where I would prefer something that is more pragmatic and really focuses on the priorities of the day. Fiona Scott-Morton said recently, why should I discuss what is first best if the political game is about avoiding the seventh best versus the fourth best, or something like that. Digital is past pro toto. We're not just talking about our digital. 20 years ago, we probably wouldn't have had this discussion because our old incrementalist innovation model that we have in many parts of Europe, especially in my country, especially in the car industry, was still working. It's broken, it's gone, right? And that's why, fortunately, we have agencies like RAFAEL's that focus on radical innovation, because that's where the game is, that's where the future value creation is being decided. And that will drive many of the established industries. And those that are left will be transformed, right? I was in Silicon Valley 8 years ago at a research location of one of the German companies. They popped the trunk and I saw a huge NVIDIA block of chips underneath. They were collaborating with them already, that is official by now. And that was probably a good decision. But it never made it into the product early. Why? Decision-making, lack of leadership, strategic intransigence, and so forth. And I think that is something that we have in many sectors, not just the industry. I'm not trying to bash industry, smart people, wonderful engineers all over Europe, right? So I'm with him and with Raphael on the positive outlook. But we don't get that potential and the resources translated into well-founded decision that are entrepreneurial. We have managerial paper pushing in many large corporations, and the wake-up call has been served. I mean, whether the wake-up call is called Donald Trump or sort of breakdown of value creation, productivity, and so forth, rising numbers, insolvencies, it's all there. It's visible, okay? And the big question now is, what should we do? Obviously, we need to get away from the incrementalist model that has particular types of decision-making, relies on particular ways of not taking action, of not developing strategy. Currently, I don't see where we have a strategy. I'm talking about my country right now, so any other country represented here or might feel good about having their strategy. But where is the technology strategy? We're trying to develop something right now under the new government, but it's awfully hard. And you wouldn't believe the back-pushing from ministries, bureaucracies against anything that changes the established, trodden path. And I think we need to come away from that. By the way, also in the science sector, some of the most intransigent, structurally conservative, non-innovative institutions are in academia. or let me say this more bluntly, academia is not an innovator, and it should take that role because it could do that. But for that, it lacks leadership, strategic planning, and many other things. I'll stop there.
Well, I'll ask you a follow-up question, actually. This is a great start. You say we don't see anything like the semblance of a plan in Germany, speaking about your country, or something which is beginning to look like a plan, and then you talk about the way in which the bureaucracy pushes back. So, I mean, that's why I kind of keep saying, let's not wait, because the bureaucracy cannot design an industry. And so that's why I put so much emphasis on industry needs to do it for itself. And, you know, government is, if anything, a facilitator, but not a designer of industries. How do we break, because we still have too much of a tendency to somehow be infantilized and say the commission needs to do this, the government needs to do that, but they can't. So how is it going to be?
By and large, I agree to what you said, but let's not be too simplistic. First of all, we have slow, sluggish decision-making also in parts of industry. Okay, that's the mindset problem that I talked about. And then we can do stuff in government, and that runs in opposition to the ideological economist opinion that state can do nothing about innovation, which I think is just wrong. And no, I will not say that word. The idea is, look at the agency model that RAFAEL represents here. We started working on that in 2016. It took an awfully long time to get it done because the ministry saw it as rivalry. Rightly so, because they can do things much faster. But we need to think how we break out for particular tasks, be it particular technologies or being particular types of innovation, in this particular case, radical innovation, that can be done pre-competitively, okay, in a good way with decent funding. And I think we can start a lot there. So I wouldn't give up on the public sector completely here, but we need to seriously think about how to bureaucratize decision-making, accelerate decision-making. I think speed is a wonderful sort of leitmotif for the whole story. We need to get faster and more decisive. And then we can bring these resources that we have in Europe also to fruition.
Yes, I agree, and I want to return in a bit to RAFAEL, because indeed his agency, which is a standalone, unique example, but it is spreading as a model, is very likely the answer to what we are looking for. So, but it took the creation of something else, new, to really move the dial in some sense.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that you cannot do that incrementally. You have to break porcelain. You have to set up something new. You cannot run away from the conflict with the established player because they will defend their turf. That's the lesson from Germany. If it works in a different way, more constructively, faster in another country, please let me know. I'll be glad to study it and sort of advertise it, but I haven't seen that.
Great. Let me turn to Luis. Luis, of course, you're known for various, also an economist, for many things. You write on AI. I wanted to really ask you to, you've been talking about what Europe can do, where we are in AI, what is our position, how we can effectively lift ourselves up in what is essentially transformative. I'm tired of the Luddite narrative that says, oh, you know, it's all terrible. No, we need to embrace it. We move forward. What are we going to do and where are we?
Thank you, Christina. So yes, I've been thinking and writing about that, and the basic position is what I would call a smart second mover position for Europe. That's, I think, the strategy that we can take. I think that being leading in large language models or being leading in data centers is basically out of our grasp. Between the three big cloud providers, they have more than 65% of the market in Europe: AWS, Azure, Google. And we are basically not going to be able to match that, and we're not going to be able to match the development cost of the large language models. So what can we do? I mean, at some level, we don't even know that large language models will be the layer at which the value capture will take place. And as Christina said, the game is not just geopolitics, it's about value capture. What do you need for value capture? You basically need to be able to avoid holdup. If you're going to rely on other people's clouds and if you're going to rely on other people's models, you have to be able to make sure that they're not able to hold you up. And Trump is giving us a year-long lesson in hold-up. I don't need to explain it to you. You make an investment. I mean, I was talking recently to a European car manufacturer who was telling me, like, oh, we are moving to AWS, and we are taking all our SAP and all our systems to AWS. And the question is, okay, how do you avoid the dump pipe situation where you're just plugging yourself in AWS, and you don't control your inference, you don't control your data, they can train the network on it, they can stop it when they want, they can steal the training, they can do the training on your data, and they can slow down or change the inference, they can do an update or an upgrade, and you're in trouble. So how do you avoid that? So I think that the key step to avoid hold-up is, okay, I agree with speed. I think we need to move speedily, and I think just sorry for the tour. We are not doing the speed part. We've basically treated AI which is general purpose technology, as a product regulation, and the producers have to show that there are no risks. And yeah, that's good for a toaster, but it's not for a general purpose technology, because when you produce it, you have no idea what kind of risks are there. We have to be much more going on the exposed side. But in terms of the interoperability, the second condition to avoid a hold-up, we need to go fast in the verticals. So the manufacturing, the health, all of these verticals have to do the implementation. That's a smart second mover. But it means we do the implementation, we try to lead implementation without being held up. We move fast and we avoid being held up. And what does it mean? It means that indeed we need to preserve the interoperability. We cannot go like in social media, where we ended up with our networks owned by these 5 or 6 oligarchs. I can't really move my 107,000 followers out of Twitter. I mean, that's just not going to happen. I could start in blue sky. It would take me months to get to small number, right? So we need to avoid that. So we need to make sure that we control the data. We need to make sure that we control the runtime inference. So basically, during the inference, people cannot shut you off. We need to make sure that there is this interoperability. I mean, at some level, these are contractual engineering, which is what I guess Brussels is masterful at, designing these rules. But we need to do it while fast. So I think that we can do this. We need to have, rely, and we have to control the weights. Sorry, I forgot the most important thing. We can rely on the open weights models. There are open weights models going on, and apparently. Mensch said yesterday in Davos, he was talking about kind of the possibilities of his stack, of his kind of type of model going both private and also powering those verticals. So I think that's one approach on the weights. We need to have the ability to move around, so the data control and the interoperability. And we need to have encryption and local situation of those data warehouses, this Amazon Web Service type data layer. So I think we can do it. I think we are bad on the speed, and we need to kind of make a huge step. I don't think the Parliament, where I have spent some time as an MEP, the Parliament is very fragmented, the Commission is very fragmented, the Council is fragmented, people don't have a vision that we need to move forward. People are still defending the laws that they passed. I mean, it's a European problem that we are asking the people who passed these terrible laws to actually confess that they're wrong and to undo them. That's hard to do, right? I mean, how is Ursula von der Leyen going to say, like, okay, I was saying A, and now I have to say no A. Oh yeah, no A with the same conviction. And the same rapporteurs for the Popular Party and the SPD are the same rapporteurs in the ENVI, for example. So how are they going to go and say, oh, the Environmental Committee, everything we negotiated, we're so proud of, it's all wrong. So we're behind on the speed, and that needs to radically change. And maybe the coalitions that are supporting legislation need to change. And maybe that's the way that the only way this goes forward. That would be very sad. And second, on the interoperability, on the hold-up, we need really to be much more creative and to move fast. But focus on that and not focus on the two big elephants, the data centers and the LLMs.
Great. So let me hand back to Rafael, and then I know that that DIETMAR wants to comment too. react as you like to what you heard, but also tell us more about the thinking, how you structure SPRIND and why it is a model for what could be done.
Yeah, I think one important item wasn't mentioned. It's we need to simply innovate the shit out of us. It's a quote from The Martian. It was, I need to science the shit out of this to get off Mars, right? And this is pretty much what we got to do. And yeah, you know, there's a lot of innovation here that we need to help translate into industries and products and solutions to the problems that we face. And that pretty much describes what we're trying to accomplish at SPRIND in a very different way. And maybe I use 2 minutes to explain what it is that we do. We're 100 people. We're driven by about 20 what we call innovation managers or program managers. If you know the DARPA model, you've heard that. These are very senior people. Actually, 2 of them are here. Karsten, Jörg, raise your hands. There they are. This is what they look like. Middle-aged people, right? With a lot of experience. That's the point. Often an IT science background, started a company, sold the company, made enough money to be able to afford becoming a government employee, right? And they don't want a career, they just want to do the right thing. This is important. So you have to have people that want to do the right thing, that have a lot of experience, that have some authority in the fields that they're working in, and these people are driving what we do. They're supported by analysts and project managers and everything you need, and then you need an administration, because on the back end, in the front end, it's a chocolate factory, because we're seeing all these great things. In the back end, it's a galley. Right, because we're a government organization. We're a Behörde in German, right? And you have to translate the tools that you get there into something that you actually need, which needs to be fast, agile, you know, very reactive. We do 3 things. 1, we have an open call going 365 days a year, 24 hours. So if you have a project which is out of basic research, which is kind of real, TRL 3-ish, plus minus, but you're pre-commercial and you're facing the valley of death, especially with deep tech or other things, we're the ones to call if it is a breakthrough disruptive innovation, if it changes the world in a good but also in a big way. You call us. And we have all various means, government means like grants, but also co-investment means like safe notes, bridge loans, equity investments, that we can actually do up to 70% of the rounds, together with private investors. So we can help you get to where you become bankable, or you're sort of carrying yourself and you don't need government aid anymore. We're investors, we're friends, we're incubators, we have a co-founder program, we have an education program for you. If you're a scientist and you never heard what a cap table is, we teach you. If you're terrible at pitching, and most of you are, we teach you. Right? That's fine, you're bad at pitching, no problem. We teach you. We make you viable for this world if you want to be a founder. We've seen 3,000 projects, we financed 300. So we're churning. And the financing, we usually start with some 200K or so to get you started quickly. And then it can be tens of millions if you need them, or less whenever the private sector comes in. We're crowding in money, but we're not crowding out private money. Second, we do challenges. That's the top-down call. When we see there is something cooking or there is a really big need, the challenge format says, find us a solution for the big question of our time, X. We want a broadband antiviral, was the first one in 21. Guess why, right? Corona, obviously. Long-term energy storage that doesn't use any conflict materials, that's fully recyclable and cheap. Or composite learning architectures that are fully open source, meaning distributed learning, so that the data can remain where it sits, control of your data, but you can still train models, and you can train them in a distributed way on diverse hardware, not just CUDA, please, but other stuff as well. New chips architectures and so forth. So we made 15 of these calls. A big one is coming. It's called Next Frontier AI. We just closed the call for the initial challenge. This one will be 125 million. Over 30 months, and in parallel we will help the successful teams to raise $1 billion of seed funding each. We're trying to incubate 3 new frontier labs in Europe with new data modalities, new algorithms, maybe new hardware that are more power efficient, faster, edgy, whatever you call it. We're just in the beginning of innovation of AI, so we don't need to follow the others. we have to leapfrog the others with new technologies. And we're guiding these people from incubation all the way to becoming these huge labs. And the third thing is, because we're having all these bright people and this network of experts out there, we're putting down strategies for all these fields. We did this because we found no strategies in Europe, so we started writing them down. The first one was the CHIPS strategy for Europe, and it was picked up by the Commission and turned into the CHIPS Act 1. We've now been called by the Commission to help them write CHIPS Act 2. And this is all connected. If you say, we do new AI models, we probably need new AI hardware. We're not capable of manufacturing leading node-sized chips in Europe. Maybe we should. We got great science like IMEC here in Belgium, right? That is providing the technology to TSMC to create the chips that we're carrying in our iPhones. I mean, this is kind of crazy. We're exporting this knowledge. Why don't we build our own? We're building AI gigafactories with NVIDIA hardware? Well, yeah, right now, probably, but we should really shoot for creating new hardware that we can put into the gigacenters that takes NVIDIA out of the equation. If you connect all these, it becomes a strategy, right?
Yes.
And you're using every euro multiple times. So this is what we're trying to do. We're 100 people, 300 million budget this year roughly, but we're also moving bigger things like the...
This is a fantastic story, and you're also moving around Europe, talking to various other member states on how to set up similar agencies.
Holland
right?
is probably the closest. Venik, Mr. ASML has sort of written the Venik paper for Holland,
yes.
which was the Draghi paper for Brussels. And they're founding a NADI, a Netherlands Agentuur for something. My from Netherlands is not all that great. We're talking to France quite a bit with BPI, where we've been tasked by Macron and Merz to help them build something. We do a challenge with Vinnova in Sweden at the moment, anti-drone response. It's collaboration and so forth. It's happening.
Great. Let me hand over to Dietmar for a final few comments. Anything you heard or you want to add before we wrap up?
Absolutely. Let me agree to the points that Luis brought up. Of course, in these areas where there is already established leadership by US hyperscalers and so forth, we cannot hope that by just declaring that tomorrow we will have the leading LLM model or whatever else, pompous policymakers sometimes render to the world. That cannot be the strategy. So smart follower strategies and so forth are what you need. But in the area that RAFAEL just described, right, emerging technologies, next generation technologies, right, we have to go for radical innovation and we have to go for leadership. Because that is the future choke point that we can have, or future guarantee for sovereignty that we need. And I think for that, we need to dig deeper. We have the agency in Germany now. And by the way, they accept proposals from other European countries, not just from Germans. And there are quite a number of examples for that. But what we need there, I think, is really a change of mindset. The director of the Stanford Linear Accelerator once said, scientists are like cats. You cannot herd them, but you can move the food. Right? What's the food? The food is Fördermittel. The food is the finance for R&D. I was in a meeting just last week where our ministry declared, you know what? The money that we want to give out now is not just to support your research. It is meant to kick up the technology 2 or 3 TRL levels. And you saw the chins sinking down that this is not our beloved food pot. We have to do something related to transfer and application for it. No, I do know that in the scientific community there are many people who are entrepreneurial and so forth, but we need many more of them, and we may have to move the food in that direction.
Wonderful, wonderful. Luis, final comment?
No, I think that we are all in the same direction. I would just say European politicians are still, as you very echoed your initial comment, are still kind of not understanding how much of our future productivity growth and how our future wealth is going to depend on this revolution. It's accelerating. It's not just what happened in 2022, in November 22, but it's what has happened in December this year with cloud code, etc. And it's going to be pervasive in everywhere from health, etc., to all the other verticals. And this is a chance to give our entire manufacturing and health, etc., industry to use it in our advantage and to give them a productivity boost by focusing on those verticals rather than trying to go everywhere. I think a strategy needs priorities.
Wonderful. Well, join me in thanking this wonderful startup panel. You can possibly make room for the next panel. This is the exact right note on which I wanted to start.